Hi, I'm Nate Savage and welcome to the final lesson on how to play guitar. In this lesson, we're going to put everything you've learned together to play through your first song. If you need to go back and review the lesson on chords or the lesson on strumming, now would be a great time to do that. If you don't, if you're ready to go, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the four chords that you learned, G, C, D, and E minor, and put them together with the last strumming pattern that you learned in the last lesson to play through the Van Morrison song, Brown Eyed Girl. And this may seem a little bit intimidating at first, putting everything you've learned together and concentrating on so many things at once. But if you keep your consistent practice up, it's going to be really fun for you. I'm confident that you can do it. So first of all, we're going to look at the chord progressions used in this song. Don't even worry about the strumming yet. What we're going to do is learn two chord progressions. The first chord progression is the one for the intro, the verse, and the chorus. And the second chord progression is the one for what we're going to call the pre-chorus. Now, if you need help with the order of this song, you can download the PDF that has the order, intro, verse, chorus, whatever, all that stuff, so you can know exactly where you are and what chord progression you need to play on which part. So, the chord progression for the intro, verse, and what would be the chorus starts off on a G. So play the G, and it's going to be for one measure. In fact, every chord that I'm going to teach you for this progression, it just takes one measure. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you're making that chord, think about the tips I gave you for making your chord sound clean. Hand posture, come right down on the tips of your fingers, right behind the frets. So 1, 2, 3, 4. From there, you're going to go to a C chord. That's the second chord in the progression. So you're going to go from your G to your C. Make sure to leave that low E string out when you're strumming this chord. Come right down on the tips of your fingers, and that third finger stretches out. Bring that elbow down so it can come right down on the third fret of the fifth string there. From there, you're going to go back to a G. And the last chord in this progression, this one for the intro, verse, and the chorus, is a D. So you're going to go from a G to a D. Make sure you're coming right down on the tip of your finger right there, and your hand is coming in so your third finger doesn't mute that high E string. Then only strum the top four strings for this chord. So that's what would be the main chord progression for this song. G, C, G, D. Make sure you have those individual chord shapes down to where they're clean. And once you start trying to string these chords together, only do two at a time, Go from the G to the C. Just practice that change. When you get those done, you can put the whole chord progression together and try going from that G to the D. Work on just that change. And eventually, once you get this down, you're going to be able to go to the whole chord progression. You may have little stumbling blocks here and there, but that's okay. It takes time to get this down. So G, C, G, D. And remember, every chord in this progression gets 4 beats. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The last chord progression that you need to know for this song is the one for the pre-chorus. And it starts off on a C, then goes to a D, then a G, then an E minor. So that's what would be the first half of this chord progression. So C, 1, 2, 3, 4. D, 1, 2, 3, 4. G, 1, 2, 3, 4. E minor, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then from there, it kind of repeats. C, D, G. But instead of going to an E minor here for the second time through, you're going to go back to a D. So the second half of the chord progression is C, D, G, and then back to a D. So think of this progression as two halves. The first half being C, D, G, E minor. The second half being C, D, G, D. And think about all the things we talked about, making your chord sound clean, anticipating the chord that's coming up so you're thinking about it, so you're ready to go to it. working on individual chord changes. So for instance, playing that C to the D over and over again, just to get it smooth. So take some time, work on the first chord progression and then the second chord progression too. Take some time, memorize them, internalize them, get them down. And once you have them to where you can pretty much go from chord to chord, you can throw the strumming pattern, the last strumming pattern that we learned in the last lesson, in with this to play the full song. So if you remember the last strumming pattern that we worked on in the previous lesson, it was 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So down, up, down. So if you need to, don't even worry about chords right now. Just work on getting this strumming pattern down. Make sure to stay relaxed, and once you have that strumming pattern to where you're pretty confident with it, you can start trying to put it in with the chord progressions that you just learned. So if you have your main chord progression, G, C, G, D, what you would do is play one chord for each measure, and this strumming pattern works out great because it's one measure long. So all you have to do is play that strumming pattern once for each chord. So you would have this. And take your time with this, get that strumming pattern down. If you have to take a little second to get to the next chord, that's fine. But once you can do that, once you can put that strumming pattern with this chord progression, you're going to be able to play with this song. And do the same thing for the other chord progression, the one for the pre-chorus. So like I said, break this song up into sections, work on little chunks, even divide up the chord progressions if you have to. Just work on 2 chords, then add another one, until you can play this on your own. Once you can do that, the exciting part comes. You can pull up the song and jam along with it. Well, that's it for this series. I hope you've learned a lot, enjoyed the lessons, and I hope you come to realize your own potential on the guitar. Keep in mind that learning how to play all these things, new things, building the dexterity, coordination, and strength necessary to play the guitar, it takes time. Don't be frustrated if you can't do it all right away. And it's, that's a good opportunity to even go through this series another time or even 2 times. The cool thing about that is you're going to pick up a lot more when you go through it again, and you're going to remember the tips I've given you for making clean chord transitions, and your strumming sound clean too. If you are ready for some new guitar lessons, you can visit guitarlessons.com. There are a ton of free video series there and a lot of resources to help you get better on the guitar. I'll see you around.